bit. My name is Brian from Intuitive IT. I just want to talk to you a little bit about how to secure Zoom. As we know, Zoom has been getting a little bit of bad press lately, but I do believe that Zoom is an amazing tool if used correctly. And I just want to go over different ways you can secure it and how it comes in handy for you. So, today we'll talk about security, talking about how you create a Zoom account. I know a lot of people probably already use Zoom, so I may be able to move faster through that portion, but I definitely just want to kind of go over mostly the best practices that Zoom has. We're going to go over difference between webinars and meetings, which one is best, the best practices for hosting a meeting and a webinar, how to avoid the common mistakes that you generally have in webinars and meetings, how to manage your audience, and the new mandated security features that Zoom has just put out. And lastly, security in general. So when you leave this meeting today, you're definitely going to have an understanding that how valuable that Zoom is as a meeting tool and how it can help you stay connected during this trying time. So my name is Brian Wallerson. I am the founder and president of Intuitive IT Techs. I've been doing IT for over 20 years now, 10 years in the DoD, in the US Air Force, doing network infrastructure and cybersecurity there. And now I've been focusing on small and mid-sized business security. Intuitive IT focuses on implementation and compliance for our small to mid-sized businesses within our community in New York, including the 5 boroughs. We want to make sure that IT is simple for everybody. And by doing that, it takes the stress off business owners, because business owners, as you can see, even right now, you're more focused on understanding how we have funds coming in. And I want to help you understand how you can use IT as a tool to help expedite funds coming into your organization. Our mission is to empower business owners and decision makers to be able to do the steps they need to do to be able to bring and have effective IT. I just want everybody to know that we're in this together. It is a trying time. It is probably one of the most difficult trying times that we've ever had. And I want us to know that we will get this together. I'm here if you need me. You can definitely reach out. I'll have my contact information at the end. But I just want to kind of give you guys some tools right now, because I know everybody's trying to stay connected to their clients. They want to stay connected to their employees. But you start hearing security issues, you kind of want to abandon ship. And I want you to know that you can use Zoom effectively if you know where to look. So kind of going over again, the best practices. When you be prepared for when you're meeting in the webinar, make sure you understand what's going on, make sure you know the meeting time. Share the correct links. This is very important, because if you share the wrong link, you are definitely opening yourself up to being Zoom bombed. Start your events and sound with video off. Sound, video off. The reason why you do that is, one, you don't want to enter your own meeting with the wrong type of sound on in the background. Second, you don't want your participants to enter a meeting or a webinar with their sound on. It's an added security feature that helps you. Use waiting rooms. Waiting rooms is actually now mandated by Zoom as a response to some of the security issues they've been having. What we're going to kind of do is kind of go over a little bit of that as well, understanding how waiting rooms are very effective for you. Use meeting passwords. Meeting passwords allows you to kind of move forward and secure your actual meeting or webinar. Now, you're going to have to make a choice. A lot of people say, hey, you want to have as much ease of access for people to get access to your webinars or your meetings as possible, so you don't deter them from wanting to join. But at the same time, you have to find that balance between security and the risk itself. Use registration on webinars. The reason why you want to use registrations, twofold. One, you get to know who's actually coming to your meetings, and it also allows you to gather some information about the person who's coming in. And then when you review to see who's going to be attending your meeting or your webinar, you can actually see, hey, this person gave me a fake email, or this person gave me a fake this. You can be a little bit more skeptical about who that person and what their intentions are. Do not use your personal meeting ID. I am going to stomp on my feet multiple times during this webinar to kind of express to you how important that is. Once your personal meeting ID is exposed, someone can access your broadcast anytime you're streaming, and you want to prevent that. It's a little bit easier if you have the paid version of Zoom because you can change your personal meeting ID. But if you have the free version of Zoom, that is your personal meeting ID, and you need to protect it like if it's your social security number. Lock meeting and webinars after they start. The reason why you do that is to prevent people from joining late, one, and somebody who decides they want to crash and disrupt your meeting after. Again, going over, disable video, microphones for all participants. This is good for webinars. When you start a meeting, you want to have that enabled at the beginning, allow you to make sure you assess to see who's actually in your meeting, and then kind of make sure that you have the right people in there, and then turn on the people who needs to have sound and mic. Never give up your hosting control. Giving up your hosting control is literally giving over your meeting to somebody else. They can end it, they can control it, they can do exactly what it says. And if you give it over to the wrong person, then you're dead in the water, and you don't want that to happen. So what we recommend doing is, if you're going to have a webinar, invite a panelist. Panelist allows almost the same controls as you have without actually being in control of the actual administrative features of the meeting itself. So they can do pretty much everything you need to do without actually being in control of how the meeting stops and starts. Multi-factor authentication. Multi-factor authentication is a good step for the back-end features. It also allows you to control that. So if you have multiple users using your company Zoom account, what you want to do is be able to allow a second form of authentication to verify who that is logging into your corporate accounts. And we'll go over that a little bit more in detail. Require authenticated users. Now, I have mixed feelings about requiring authenticated users because of the fact is authenticated users means the person has to have a Zoom account, a registered Zoom account. Now, it can be a deterrent for somebody who's trying to register for your event or attend your meeting, because they'd be like, why do I need to have a Zoom account? But it helps you because you know that person has a valid email account. You know that person has valid information on file. It doesn't mean they have to pay for Zoom. It doesn't mean for any of that. So if you're going to require authenticated users, you have to educate people on the back end to know that when they're advertising the links, to let the people know that, hey, it doesn't mean you have to pay for Zoom or anything like that. You just want to make sure that you have a valid email address, and it allows you to authenticate that way. All right. We're going to kind of go into account creation. Now, again, like I said, I know a lot of people already have Zoom accounts, so I may move a little fast for this. If you have questions, just go ahead and save them for the end. I am definitely going to address your questions. All right, which one do you choose? Zoom pretty much really only has two versions that deals with small to mid-sized businesses. Now, even though it says small to mid-sized businesses here in the middle, you have to have a minimum of 10 hosting accounts to even use that one. So most people generally go with basic, which is the free version, or the pro. I don't really believe that anybody needs any more than that right now, but if you do, we can definitely talk offline and we can kind of go over about which ones best work for you. The free version really has a lot of great features and tools, especially if you are a small operation, you want to try to collaborate with your team, etc. The free version is great, and I'm definitely going to go in depth about how to secure that. And the reason why I'm going to go in depth on how to secure that, because securing your basic personal section actually builds on securing your pro section if you have the pro account for webinars, etc. So basically, as you can see here, when you look here, it has unlimited one-to-one meetings, but you're capped at 40 minutes. Now, that's a lot of time to talk in a meeting. And worst case scenario, you can restart the meeting, You can, and that's only if you have more than like 2 or 3 people in there, I believe. Once you go into the pro feature, you can see here that you also have admin controls. You have admin controls for additional users that's going to be in your account. When they say users, you're not talking about guests who are going to be attending your meetings. These are going to be people who are logging into the admin section, the back part of the account, who can be scheduling meetings, who can be also be panelists, be additional hosts, etc. And it allows you to have that capability. All right. Now, if you want to do webinars, webinars is an add-on to the pro account, pro and above. Now, webinar is $40 a month, but it's reduced if you pay annually, and it's on top of your pro account feature, right? In order to have webinar, you have to have a pro account. All right, so signing up. The biggest part is making sure when you sign up to Zoom is going to zoom.us, not .com, .us. All right, go ahead and just click up on sign up. It's free. Real quick, it's going to bring you to the account creation page. On the account creation page, you're going to go ahead and put your work email address in there. If you're using it for personal reasons, you can just put your personal email address in there. They give you the option to sign up with Google and Facebook, kind of like an integrated login type thing. If you're focused on security and you're making sure that you don't want nobody else to log in on their own, just go ahead and use your email address. It makes it a little bit easier for you to not have to worry about linked accounts in that way. Once you go ahead and add your email address, you hit submit, it's going to ask you for to verify your birthday. They just want to make sure you're 16 years or older. All right, you're going to get an email in your inbox. Just go ahead and click activate account. Once you hit activate account, it's going to ask you for your first name, your last name, and then you're going to have to put a password in. Now, if you look at the password features here, the password is not really that complex. And I'm going to kind of go in a little bit more about how to increase the complexity of your password by mandate in the security features in Zoom. But as you can see here, you can basically create a simple password, at least have one upper and lowercase letter numbers, but no special characters or anything like that. It's not required at this point. So now we're going to go into the account basic setup. All right. So here's my favorite part in the account basic setup. I got a big red X right here. Do not on any circumstances share or view this to anybody. This is your personal meeting ID. Now, the reason why I'm showing it to you right now is because this is a fake dummy account that I'm showing you here. It doesn't have access to anything, nor do we use it for anything. It's an account that I created to be able to educate others on what not to share. Your personal meeting ID, this number right here, and which ends up going on the back of this Zoom URL, can be added at any point to a web browser. And if you're streaming a meeting, I can just click on it and go ahead and it accesses your meeting. What does that mean? It means that I have access to what you see. I have access to what you're talking about. And then I can possibly start talking in the middle of your meeting if you don't have your security features enabled correctly. Zoom did make an update. However, the update does say, hey, require passwords for personal meeting ID. That's fine and dandy and all. That's only if you just put the personal meeting ID at the end of the Zoom URL. But if you accidentally share this URL right here, the one that has the encrypted password at the end, then the person automatically jumps into your meeting, no password required, anything like that. Something to keep in mind, treat this area like your social security number. Personal meeting ID, just remember it's like your social security number. You want to protect it at all times. All right, so we're going to start off, we're going to be in the profile of the personal section. This is exactly what I was talking about here. All right, so at the bottom, we're going to talk about the time zone. So the time zone here is when we get into the time zone, it's basically letting you know what your local time zone is. Do not change this to match what your client's time zone is or anything like that. This is your local time zone. This is important for when you're setting up appointments or setting up meetings or setting up webinars so they know how to list it on your profile and the registration links. Okay. If you see it says sign in email, the sign in email is the account that I'm using. All right. If you go back, you take a look, it says if you have any linked accounts. You can have linked accounts. Basically, let's say you have more than one Zoom account. If you have more than one email account you're using, you can do it that way. The user type, right now it tells me my user type is basic, which means it's basically the free version, and it gives you the option to upgrade. It tells you what the capacity is of your meetings as well, which is 100. All right. So back what I was talking about. When you're using the basic version, which I said here, if you go to try to change your personal meeting ID, you can't. It says only paid users can change their personal meeting ID, which is why it's very important to ensure that you protect your personal meeting ID. All right. Lastly, at the bottom, there's another section down here where it talks about host key. The host key is also the 6-digit key that is required to take over hosting. You do not share it with anybody. Unless you really want to give somebody hosting abilities of your account, don't share it. Going back to the arrow above that, you're going to see it says connect to calendar or calendar service. When you connect it to a calendar service, this is allowing you to integrate your calendar with Zoom so that Zoom knows, hey, what time slots you can pick from. And we're going to go a little bit more in depth about that in a second. All right. So we're going to go into the settings feature, which is on the left-hand side of your Zoom profile. And I'm going to kind of go through and highlight the most important features. Now, the reason why I want to highlight the most important features that deal with our end game here, and end game is ensuring that we know about security for your Zoom account. I'm not going to go into every single feature. I'm going to go into the ones that you need to know to understand how to secure your Zoom account. All right. So with your Zoom account, you're going to go into settings and you're going to be on the first tab, which is meetings. You're going to see here at the top, automatically by default now, host video and participant video is off. This is good. You're going to want your host and participant video to be off because exactly what I said when we first started. You do not want anybody to go ahead and join your meetings with their sound or video on. You don't know what they may expose you to. Let's just say if it's a key meeting you're getting ready to have, it is a bad impression you can put on your clients or your potential clients. Join before host and use personal meeting ID when scheduling meetings. Those both should also be off. The reason why those are off is because you're going to want to have everybody in the waiting room. You don't want them in there. You don't want them starting a meeting without you. If you're the host, you don't want them starting the meeting without you. And again, going back to the personal meeting ID, if you schedule a meeting with a personal meeting ID, your personal meeting ID does not change by default, especially on a basic, aka a free account. So anytime somebody has that, they can always come back to your meeting. All right, next section, diving down a little bit. We're going to go into where it says only authenticated users can join from the web client. The web client is the software interface we're using right now to look at Zoom, unless you're on a telephone call. But if you're using a PC, if you're using a tablet or a laptop, you're going to be using the desktop app. And the desktop app is a encrypted communication back and forth between me, the host, and you as the student. Now, I do like these features because of the fact is that it ensures that you have encrypted communication between the two. Now, it says also require password when scheduling new meetings. Now, this is with the personal meeting ID and for instant meetings. Now, again, Zoom tries to do this thing called ease of access. So when you share a link, the password is already encrypted at the end. So it almost kind of hinders its point itself. So this is why you have to ensure that you know who you're sharing your links with, and also use some of the cool other features as backups, just in case somebody else has the link. And the cool other features we're going to talk about is going to be the waiting room, which you have the ability to see who's coming into your meeting, who you can reject from coming into your meeting or dismiss. The next thing, you see here your password. You can actually change the password that it's using. As you can see, it kind of already put like a semi-complex password in there. You can change it. You can add the 10 characters in there and do what you need to do. The next section. Upcoming meeting reminders and mute participants upon entry. Now, the biggest thing is muting participants upon entry. When people come in, you do not want their sound to be on. I can't stress that enough. It becomes very unprofessional and it is very distracting to the image of what you may be trying to pose for your clients. Zoom is an interesting tool to ensure that we can actually promote ourselves, promote your professionality, which is why everything that you do with Zoom matters. How you're dressed, how you're talking, the presentation that you have, understanding that even though we're all working from home right now, or we may be locked away, the goal is to still present that professional image, which is why understanding that you want to ensure that this is not just about working from home, this is about actually working from your business, and your business is wherever you are. All right, so allowing participants to chat and visible to each other. So you can have this feature on, you can have this feature off. Now, what does this mean? In meetings, it means, hey, the other participants can talk to each other while they're in the meeting, or you can turn this off and they're just listening to you. And the only communication they can have is with you. Now, this can come in handy for two different things. If it's just a family chat, you can leave this feature on. If it's a professional chat, you may want to actually turn this off, and you may only want your people you're in a webinar with or the people you're having a meeting with to actually just talk to you directly. All right, getting into one of the last pages of the personal section is the breakout room. Now, the breakout room is a new feature that Zoom had, but they're just making it kind of like one of those new requirements they want everybody to start using. And it's a good thing to do, because what it happens is if you have a large webinar or a large meeting, you can actually section off the meeting into smaller rooms. Even though they're still talking to you and still seeing what's going on, you actually kind of limit the interaction with everybody else. So you can, let's just say you wanted to have teams of 5. You can have the teams of 5 people in each breakout room that kind of does it all together. So another thing you're going to see down here again, where I have my nice little slash mark, far end camera control. If you have this feature turned on, users on the other end can control your camera. And you do not want that. You do not want that feature turned on, especially in a professional meeting. If this is something that you're doing between you and your family and friends, and it's a game, maybe. But this is a business, and the business mindset is that you want to present that professionality across the board all the way. And how to do that is ensuring that nobody else can control the presence and the presentation that you're trying to present. Far end camera control should be off. I've seen a couple of different accounts where this has been on. The virtual background. Now with the virtual background, you can turn that on, you can turn that off. And you can create one for your account. You can create one for your team that basically automatically turns on for your team. These are different settings that you can do. But with the virtual background, you're definitely going to need a green screen for that, which allows you to be able to present the image on the back. Lastly, the waiting room. Now the waiting room, exactly how it sounds. The waiting room is a nice little waiting room where everybody just sits there waiting for you to actually invite them into the room or for you to actually start the presentation. Now it's a great feature because of the fact is, again, you can kind of weave through everybody. You can even message them prior to letting them in, just to make sure who they are, they say they are, which is great. All right. So we're going to go ahead and schedule a meeting. So I know that, again, as I stated, that a lot of people have already been Zoom users. So before I do that, I actually want to kind of go back and just highlight 2 things real quick before we jump into that. Again, my #1 biggest gripe My number one biggest thing that I see a lot of people do, and you just want to make sure that you are not doing it because you can open yourself up to it. Do not share your personal meeting ID. I wish they did come up with a different label for this, and it might be a suggestion that I might send to them so that they understand that this is a vulnerability that people are susceptible themselves to, but do not share your personal meeting ID. It was a great feature because I guess kind of like in the TeamViewer days where if somebody knew your little link, you can share it and then be like, okay, I always know that person's PC number is this, but link with TeamViewer, you have to get a password before you can log in there. With this, it's not set up that way. And they're trying to do that now, and which is why we're going to talk about a lot of the good features that they have to help prevent this. All right, so in your account, you're going to go to meetings, you're going to click on schedule a meeting. You're going to go in, you're going to type in, again, this is PowerPoint, so I already typed a lot of this stuff in. You're going to go ahead, this is going to be Luke's meeting about you. All right, we're going to talk about how to work a camera. As you can see in here, I have the date, the time, the duration, and it's telling me, hey, you're using the free version. Since you're using the free version, if you have 3 or more participants, you have to stay below 40 minutes. Okay, so now I know. Is this a reoccurring meeting? It's not a reoccurring meeting, so I'm not going to check it. Okay, my next biggest thing here, going back to the personal meeting ID again, as you can see here, it says, hey, do you want to generate one automatically, or do you just want to use the one that you always have? You're always going to want to make sure that generate automatically is turned on. Okay, require a meeting password. You can change this, you can make it bigger, you can make it smaller, whatever it is. But again, if you're going to send the link out that we're going to show you next, it's automatically going to be attached to that. This password is only going to pop up if somebody types in your LinkedIn ID, your actual personal meeting ID, without the encrypted password attached to the end. Okay, when scheduling a meeting, you have the options to change a lot of the default settings that we talked about earlier. So we went in here, we talked about, hey, we want to make sure that the host and the participant video is off. Talks about, hey, what option do you want to have for using audio? You can use telephone, you can use the computer audio, or you can use both. This is not saying, hey, which, it's pretty much letting you know that, hey, this is the option that we want to choose. Do you want to choose telephone for everybody or computer audio for everybody? The best practice is to use both, because you never want to mandate it to be computer audio. And if you have somebody who needs to be a part of the meeting and their computer audio doesn't work, they're going to need to tell them by the telephone or vice versa. So you want to make sure that you have both set up by default. Okay? Enable join before host and mute participants upon entry. Both should be, one should be enabled, one shouldn't be enabled. The one that should be unchecked is enable join before host. The one that should be checked is mute participants upon entry. Okay? So going down here, make sure you have waiting rooms enabled. Now, the breakout room setting here, the breakout room is pretty much what I talked about earlier, is setting everybody up into individual like little classrooms or little separate rooms. You can pre-assign rooms prior to the meeting starting if you have the list of all the email accounts that are going to be joining, and you can do that. All right, so once you hit save, the meeting is scheduled. Now up here, you're going to see these 3 calendar scheduling. What you can do is click on either one of them. You can click on one for Google, you can click on one for Outlook, you can click on one for Yahoo. Now, these are great because what happens is this actually is a link really for you. This link is not really for your guests. This link here, the one that's down that says join URL, that's the one that's generally for your guests. This one is to add to your calendar. At the top is the one to add to your calendar. And I'm going to express the reason why I'm going to express that, because when you get to webinars, if you share the one that comes from this calendar links up here with anybody, they can start your webinar without you. And you do not want that to happen. They changed it a little bit for meetings. So the meetings, when you click on this link, you're going to see it's the same link as the one down here that says join URL. But for webinars, it is not. And which is why, as a general practice, or real good general practice to only use the join URLs that it gives you itself and not to use the ones that are here. This is only for you to add to your own calendar to remind yourself. Okay, so to start the meeting, once you have the meeting started, you're going to see down here, the meeting is going to start, the video is going to be disabled. I'm going to see how many participants are waiting. If it says 1, generally the 1 participant is yourself. The share screen is actually going to be you sharing what you're going to be sharing, like either the PowerPoint slide that I'm sharing here, whether it be a video, whether it be another software device that you have showing up. You can use it to share properly. And you do that by just clicking on it and clicking on what you actually want to share. I generally do not share my whole desktop because you don't want people to see what's on your desktop. Sometimes it's cluttered or unprofessional. You just don't want to do that. Breakout rooms. We're going to go in that a little bit more in depth in a few, but I just kind of want to just guide into here. In the waiting room, this is what the person is going to see when they try to join. They're going to join, they're going to say, hey, the person is waiting, is going to see you soon. This is what you're going to see as the admin for the meeting. It's going to say, hey, Brian has entered the room. Do you want to admit him or do you want to see the waiting room? I'm going to want to see the waiting room. I'm kind of going to want to see who that is. So in here, I have the choice. Once I click on see the waiting room, this is going to pop up. I'm going to see the participants. I get to see that, hey, Brian is waiting. And I can admit them, or I can remove them, or I can just message. You click on message, you can actually message the person and actually confirm that that really is who that is. Let's just say you guys have a secret handshake or a secret talk or a secret code word you guys want to use. More than likely to use it. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get into the webinar feature. So, all right, so scheduling a webinar. Now, when you're scheduling a webinar, the biggest thing about the webinar is that you can, the feature is only going to be turned on if you have the paid version. Even though webinar is listed there, when you log into your account, you're actually not going to see that. It's just going to click on it, and then what's going to happen is if you do have the paid version of webinar, it's just going to say, hey, you don't have it, do you want to subscribe to it? Once you click on webinars, it's going to give you the option. So, going into the actual accounts now, everybody should be able to see now. Going into here, we're going to go down to webinars. So the biggest thing here is now that, hey, we're in our new webinar here, schedule a webinar. We're just going to go through, I'm just going to go through a generic scheduling of a webinar here. For the webinar, you can go through, I'm just going to leave it as my webinar because I kind of just want to get to a key feature here for the webinar, which is very important. Okay, the recurring webinar, basically if you want to have the webinar happen more than once, it gives you an option to do that. And you can say, hey, I want to have the webinar reoccur every day, every week, every month, at a fixed time, at a certain day. You can do it however you want to do it. Basically what it allows you to do is reuse that same meeting ID for that. Now, registration. Registration is very important. Now, the reason why I say it's a best practice, the best practice for registration is when you go through here, it allows you to gather the information for the people you're meeting with. The reason why you want to do that, one, is another step that somebody has to do to jump into your meeting. They have to register. Two, it allows you to use it for collaboration later. Let's just say, hey, you have people who register for your class, people who register to attend this. Now you have a list of all their information that you can gather. Now, the webinar password is here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of reoccurring because I don't need that for this example here. As you can see, it's similar to setting up a meeting where the host and panelist video is going to be turned off. As you can see, it has the word panelist here now. Now, panelists, as you can see, is going to be somebody who's going to be also doing speaking during your event, where you can actually have them come in, they can talk, not talk, and they can interact with the audience. As you can see, I do not have an option for participants because participants are automatically disabled in Zoom. Okay. All right. Again, I have the option for both on. Now, when scheduling a webinar, here's a couple of key things that I want to talk about. Q&A. Have Q&A checked. Q&A check allows me to be able to talk to you and you be able to talk to me. questions into the chat. Practice session. A practice session is very important. The reason why practice session is very important is for the fact is that it allows you to start the webinar prior to attending with the students. You can test the audio, you can test the sound, you can test the video, you can interact with your helpers, whoever you have in the video, you can do that prior to broadcasting it live. If you don't have this set up, when you go ahead and hit start, that's when it starts. And if you end it prior to if you end it after the time that it's supposed to have started, you're not going to be able to go ahead and restart that webinar, and you lost out on that opportunity. Now, here's this feature: authenticated users can join. Now, the authenticated users, you see here, it tells you sign into Zoom, which means they have to have a Zoom account or create a Zoom account. It's a free Zoom account they would have to create. Now, this can be a deterrent to people registering for your webinar. I did not do that for this webinar, only for the fact is that it can be a deterrent to people get a little confused by it. If you don't have it's like, oh, so it's only for people who work for Zoom, it's only people who use Zoom. Like, again, you have to realize you got to find that gray line between ease of access and security. Now, webinar on demand. When you click on webinar on demand, it automatically records to the cloud. Webinar on demand means once this webinar is done, it's recorded, it's uploaded to the cloud, and then anytime somebody wants to watch this webinar again, they can, without having to be here live and doing it. So I'm just going to leave the defaults just like this, and I'm just going to go ahead and schedule it, because the reason why I'm going to do that is because I want you to see some more important stuff here. We're going to go ahead and hit schedule. Awesome. So with this schedule here, now I have these links here. All right. Now these links here, go ahead and it shows me, hey, I can add this to my Google Calendar. I can add this to my Outlook calendar. I can add it to my Yahoo calendar. The webinar ID is here. Here's the webinar password. It gives me all the settings that I did. Now, if I go ahead and click on this, it's going to go ahead and it's going to open up the iCal thing. That's going to open up to my Outlook. Outlook's going to open up. It's going to tell me that this window is not shared, which I'm about to share it with you right now. Not a problem. So you can actually see what I'm talking about. And the biggest feature here is this S that's right here. Now, there's an S that's right here on this link here. Now, on this link means this person can start this webinar. Everybody else does not get this S here. S is for start. And if somebody has an S on that link, that means they can start and host your webinars for you. And you don't want that. All right. So one of the great features for security here in Zoom, which is lastly, you want to go into here and how you can invite people to attend your webinar. So attending your webinar here for features in Zoom, going through, as you can see, I can have up to 100 people in a webinar. It tells me that my registrants are automatically approved. Now you can get a little complex in here and you can do a couple of different features for Zoom. When you go in here where it says automatically approved, you can click edit. When you click on edit, it gives you the option that says, hey, registration is required. Yes. Do you want to automatically approve or manually approve everybody who registers? If you automatically approve, as soon as they hit submit, they get the email confirmation saying they've been registered and they'll get the link. If you hit manually approve, what happens is if they're going to register and it's going to say pending approval. Once it says pending approval, if you have this next button, check the notifications, send an email to host when someone registers for the class, you will get an alert and then you will be able to go ahead and approve or deny them for whatever reason. The reason why you would do this is if you want to verify the email addresses that are registering for your webinar, if you wanted only to have it for a select few people or people who have paid for something, but you would use their built-in subscription service for that. But there are different reasons why you would do that. I generally use automatically approved because, again, going back to ease of access, because at the end of the day, you can still view the list of people who are registered for your class. I always check, send me an email so I know every time somebody registers for my webinar, I can go through, take a look, double check, and go from there. On the next page, you have questions. Now, the questions is what you get to ask your registrants when they try to register. You can ask them for their name, their first name, their telephone number, their organization, the number of employees. You can also put custom questions in here that you can get filled in. So you can get as kind of as little detailed as possible. Again, you want to try to get the information you need, but keep it as simple as possible because you do not want to create a deterrent if this is a way you're entertaining or gaining clients. All right. The next feature that I really love is that you can create different tracking URLs. Now, a lot of people normally pay for different analytics. You can do it from within Zoom. And for what I'm saying here is, because this is the registration link you're going to be giving out to people if you physically post it on Facebook, post it on somewhere else, but you can actually break it down based on Facebook, based on LinkedIn, based on Twitter, and you can go ahead and just click the different registration. It kind of gives you a summary one. I can just type in home. And hit add and goes from there. So now I know anybody who uses this link here is from my home. And anybody who uses this is all others. And I can create as many as I need to kind of go from there. So that's basically it for the security features on here for the webinar. Most of the security features were already covered in the actual meetings. So the last few things I want to talk about is going to be on the left-hand side in the admin section, in the admin toolbar. Now, a lot of these features are going to be turned off unless you have corporate accounts, which is going to be the SI session in place, which is room connector. That's pretty much for adding third-party video connectors. And then you can have branding. Branding is only going to be for if you have 10 hosting accounts or above. Again, security is what we're going to go into now. Single sign-on is basically if you only want to be able to log into your corporate email address and it logs you into Zoom automatically. Again, that's going to be for corporate accounts. And integration is going to be the different apps you can integrate with this. And you're going to see that you can integrate quite a few apps with this. Now I'm going to go back into security real quick. Now security here, where it says under admin, security talks about security for your corporate account. So when I say corporate account, for pretty much any user who's using your Zoom accounts, so that you can have more than one host underneath there, you can have more than one user underneath there, and you can control the rules for the users. You can control how complex their passwords are. You can control if they can see some of the billing information, and this is where you would change it. And if you remember at the beginning of the webinar, I talked about how to make the passwords more complex. This is where you would do it under admin down here in security. And you can go in here and set up enhanced password rules. You can go in and say, hey, I want to have at least one character. I want to have this. I want to have that. I want to have a special character. I want them not to be able to change their password more than once in 24 hours. You can change all of those features in there, which allows you to kind of secure it a little bit more so people won't go through and take control of stuff. All right. So with that being said, is there any more questions? We've definitely reached the end here. Okay, well, thank you for joining us. I'm Brian Wallison, founder of Intuitive IT, and I look forward to seeing you at our next webinars. Have a great day.